Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Afternoon Tune. I'm your very special host, Nick, and with me is one of my favorite people on earth. It's my favorite guest co-host. It is Brandon. How are you doing, my friend?
Heyo, I am doing quite well today. I cannot complain. Happy to be here.
Thanks. Thank you. And we got a very special stream for coming at you guys. So it just dawned on me that we're about 2 weeks away from season 2 of The Last of Us on HBO coming back, which I think both you and I were very excited about when we first heard it announced, or at the very least cautiously optimistic, because how do you take a game that is, so cinematic and so story driven and adapted to television? And then I think we, along with a lot of the people that were kind of hesitant when the pilot dropped, it was like, damn, that's pretty good.
Right? Yeah, that's how you do it. I guess that's how you do it.
That's how you do it. It kind of ushered in this like new era of great video game adaptations. And it was like, wait, these don't have to suck.
They don't have to be Resident Evil or Mario Brothers. We can have better.
Or I haven't seen it yet, but I haven't heard great things about the Minecraft movie.
Yeah, I haven't heard great things either.
Yeah, yeah, I remember, a while ago, I think it was a couple years ago when the finale dropped, but you were on our review of the HBO show.
Yeah.
What did you think of it? If you could, give it back and bring it back to, what you thought to the people here.
Man, I just remember being like overwhelmed, like with surprise. Like I love the game, and like you said, was a little cautious of what the adaptation was going to be. But I think they knocked it out of the park with like a really great first season. All the actors are great. The stuff that they adapted from the game and the stuff that they changed, like, were great changes. It was just like an amazing like piece of art. Like, and I love that we get the game director like actually working on the show as well, which doesn't happen a lot when you get these video game adaptations. So yeah, I just remember loving that first season a lot.
And it was so funny that the show premiered around the same time that another Naughty Dog adaptation, Uncharted, came to theaters. And which one Neil Druckmann wasn't really putting his name on.
Oh man, yeah, I see why.
But yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. It was like, it's one thing to have a great story, to be surprised by beats, kind of like how I was when I played the first game. It's another when I know pretty much where your story is going and it still hits the same way emotionally. There's like so many of the great highlights from the video game, like the death of Sarah, a lot of the personal conflict with Joel and Ellie, and even a character from the game, David, who is so much more terrifying on the show. It was like amazed that they were able to do that. And with season 2 coming out, there was a bit of a controversy when The Last of Us Part 2 came out. I think very dumb reasons. However, upon replays, it's a game I love, but it is not without its flaws, a lot of which we'll probably get into here.
Totally agree. Like, I do think the hate when that game came out was like way overdrawn. Like, because I don't think I played it when it came out initially. So like I was like just looking out, trying to find the good reviews that weren't like shitting on it for like the dumb reasons. But yeah, I remember when I finally played it, I was like, wait, this is what people are mad about? Like, this is what had people like pissing in their pants? But it's the world of gamers and nerds, so they're always going to find something to be upset about.
Yeah, gamers, that world is pretty much, it lives in hyperbole anyway. And you take a game that is as beloved as The Last of Us and do some, very bold and very daring story decisions that they chose to do in the second game. But I don't think that their decisions were without merit. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but probably one of the big things that we'll get to once we delve deeper into the story, because I want to give people who haven't played the game a chance to, mute, don't go away, but, just mute us for a little bit, do something else while you're, watching us. But, potential spoilers for season 2 of The Last of Us, because it is well known that a character in the second game, Abby, has been cast and is going to be played by Caitlin Dever.
Correct.
Who, just by the casting, is clearly going to be a very different type of person in the show than in the game.
For sure. And like, I think they kind of teased us with that, like in the first season, like with how certain characters are different than they were in the game, like Bill being a big one, that we get a little more depth in him.
Yeah. Whenever the show made a change with a character, it was always in service of how can we expand this world? How can we make changes to it? How can we flesh out the world? Like, one of the biggest things that I was, on the edge of my seat for was probably in the pilot, which is the very first thing you see. Because I watched the pilot premiere night with my dad, who was coming to visit, and I didn't tell him anything about the show. All I told him was that this is a show that's come from a video game that I really like, and it's from the same guy who made Chernobyl. That was all I told him before I cut on the show.
That's the perfect way to like do it, honestly.
So he, like me, was, kind of, and I'm not even saying kind of, but damn it, my screen sharing is not as smooth as I would like it to be, but it was kind of horrifying.
Thus bending the ant's mind to its will. Fungus
behavior,
telling it where to go, what to do, like a puppeteer with a marionette. And it gets worse.
And
the fungus needs
the most horrifying
the infection fixed on 1 billion of cordyceps, aspergillus. Any one of them could become capable of burrowing into our brains and taking control, not of millions of us, but billions of us. Billions of puppets with poisoned minds, permanently fixed on one unifying goal: to spread the infection to every last human alive by any means necessary. And there are no treatments for this, no preventatives, no cures. They don't exist. It's not even possible to make. So if that happens, we lose.
Okay, that was appropriately terrifying.
Yeah, just terrify the whole audience. Why don't you?
Yeah, and I love because The Last of Us, it is a very dark and it's a very intense story, but it's not one without a sense of humor.
For sure.
And I love how
dark sense of humor.
And I love how the interviewer in that entire scene, he's like very jovial. He's kind of like a very Dick Cavett-esque type of TV late night host. And you just see more and more as John Hannah keeps talking. It's just,
no.
But
it's just like one of my favorite things. Yeah, I love all the like cold opens and like extra little flavor they give to the world in the first season.
And definitely the biggest one, which was completely changing the character of Bill, who in the show is played by Nick Offerman. Because in the game, we meet him after him and Frank have had a falling out, their relationship crumbled, and Bill, has kind of lost it and is purely about survival. And all of the characters that you meet playing the game, they're meant to kind of be this reflection of Joel and Ellie, of where their journeys and where their lives could take them. Yeah. And his is like this, life of just survival instead of living. And in episode 3, they decided to make this very beautiful love story between Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett, who I didn't see until White Lotus. And and every time I watch that show, especially when I get to that moment, I end up crying like a bitch.
God, that was all of us, dude. It just surprised us.
even my mom and dad were like kind of shaking. It was like, oh, please don't make Nick Offerman gay in this. And by the end of it, they were crying too.
Yep.
But yeah, so everybody who is tuning into the stream has played both games. They know how the story The Fireflies, they take Ellie. The only way to develop a vaccine is to remove the cordyceps from her brain. So Joel, he reacts rather harshly to that.
Yeah, you know.
He, goes on this insane massacre through the entire hospital, killing dozens of people in this rebel group who, signed up because they were trying to fight this authoritarian dictatorship that took over the world after the infection. And I love that in the show, at least, because I think we talked about this when we reviewed the HBO show initially. In the video game, there's like this element of power fantasy almost. Like, wouldn't it be really cool if you could be this badass survivor character like Joel is in the video game? And I like that they added more layers to Joel that you couldn't do in a video game just because of in that medium, you're purely tied to their perspective. So you get to see things from the outside. Like this entire set piece, it is, just looking at it visually, it's a very cool action set piece, but it's played very somberly. You have the returning composer, Gustavo Santaolalla, who just made the most sad, depressing score. It's almost like a funeral march. And you see, and I was hesitant with the announcement that Pedro Pascal was going to play Joel because wouldn't have been my first choice, but seeing his performance now and seeing how the character dissociates almost when he has to be this violent, it adds a new layer to a character I already love and I'm also kind of scared of from playing the video game.
Like there's this coldness and just like matter of factness almost of him like going about it in this whole scene where it's just like this is me or them and I am going to save this little girl. Sorry.
Yeah, you're not in the way. I am not going to fail protecting somebody I love again.
Yeah. Exactly. He is a man on a mission.
And this entire set piece leads us into the second game because one of the biggest victims of this hospital massacre, who we will come to know in the second season, is the doctor who tried to, perform the surgery on Ellie. And that is who we come to know as Abby's father in the second game. Because for last chance to walk away, spoiler free, but the character of Abby, her father was the doctor at the end of The Last of Us Part 1. And the reason that she kills Joel is out of revenge. And so this entire second game is meant to be at least the first part of it, where you are playing as Ellie. It is meant to be this kind of, on paper, just, bare bones kind of revenge story of, go to where Abby is, hunt her down and get justice for Joel. Until the second half of the game, about after 10 hours or so of gameplay, you've gone in the story 3 days in Seattle hunting her down. You've killed most of Abby's friends already. And then the perspective shifts and you go all the way back to day one, but this time you're playing as Abby. What did you think about that when you play the game?
I was luckily not spoiled on it. And so when it happened, because it's such a dramatic moment, it's Abby and Ellie finally come face to face and then cuts to black and we're like you said, day one, and now we're in Abby's shoes. And I just thought it was such of course I get the outrage, oh my god, how dare you make me play as this woman now after
it's like you spent the entire game going after Joel's killer. Why would you why would Naughty Dog and Neil Druckmann force us to play as her?
And like you said, it's a ballsy decision, it's a ballsy choice. And the way the stuff we get to see from Abby's perspective reminds me so much of in season 1 what we got a little bit with the other groups. We got a little bit more of what's going on with them. And so diving into what the WLF is about, Abby and her friends, Abby and her social situation, and how she feels after getting the revenge, like was such a like looking back on it now is like such an interesting way to like tell a story about revenge.
And it's a story decision that Naughty Dog, I think it's not a criticism that's lacking merit, because I think, just as a player, spending 10 hours of gameplay just mowing through this entire faction, just ruthlessly hunting down Abby, only to essentially start the story over from a different point of view. I can get that it can be frustrating, and in some ways, especially with how you kind of have to play The Last of Us before you complete the game and unlock all the game modifiers, it's a very frustrating thing, because you literally have to search every single corner of every space in order to get all the resources you need. However, from a story, I get what Neil Druckmann and company were going for, because this entire story is about like the themes of tribalism, about kind of how we as humans will look at the other and dehumanize them to the point of being a monster. Like the way we saw Abby, especially after seeing her kill Joel and seeing how that haunts Ellie. It's like, we want her dead just as much as Ellie does.
Yeah. And then I find it so interesting, like as you keep going with Abby, like her story essentially becomes almost The Last of Us Part 1, where like when she meets up with
she pretty much she has this story, because the WLF, they're in this war with another faction in Seattle called the Seraphites, or Scars, because the cuts they give themselves. But like in the second act of Abby's story, she gets captured and gets rescued by two Seraphite kids.
Yara. Demons are coming. Cut her down. She's one of them. Left.
Abby, can you quit aura farming for a second? We got infected.
Like, Jesus, those arms.
Like, I could work out for nonstop for an entire year, and I will never be as jacked as Abby is in this video game. But
it's something to aspire to.
But yeah, in very much like what you were saying, is we start to see life from the perspective of the other, which both part 2 of the game and even the HBO show, did a fantastic job of adding layers to it. And the more you play as Abby, and also I think kind of intentionally by the storytellers, you start to, because you go to the end of day 3 as Ellie. They're about to give up. They're about to cut their losses. They couldn't find Abby in the 3 days in Seattle. All of Ellie's crew are either like sick or injured. They need to go back, and Abby finds them at the hotel at their little base. And just from the story perspective, like the longer you play as Abby, you start to dread going back to that theater.
Yeah,
like, please don't me. But what did you think about playing it with that perspective, and having played and replayed the game, knowing the different the beats that the story follows?
Yeah, no, like I'm exactly like you. Like at a certain point, like I think when you're playing as Abby, you forget that you do have to go back and confront Ellie, like at that their base, but like you're getting the empathy, like as much as this game is about vengeance, it's about empathy as well. Like that scene, like Abby and Lev eventually become like very good, like close, but like
they start to demystify a lot of the preconceptions and biases that they have for each other's groups. The longer they get together, the longer they hang out.
And it's such an interesting parallel because the whole time, like Ellie is almost going deeper and deeper into this vengeance, and Abby is coming like out of it. So it's like very like, again, like replaying it. Like I know we're both like replaying the game before the show, but yeah, just replaying it like from Ellie's perspective and jumping into Abby's is just like, wow, you really see how like vengeance takes hold of these characters. And like, I mean, I always think of the Black Panther line from like Civil War, where it's like vengeance is consuming them.
Consumed them. But yeah. And very much in, Neil Druckmann said in interviews that the whole idea of the story was to have this allegory for the cycle of violence and how violence begets violence, and the only way to break it is to walk away. Very much like they do at this game. I do have one major beef with Abby's side of the story. Is that you spend like 8 hours trying to get medical supplies for Yara, who is the girl who has the broken arm. They have to cut it off. You spend 10 hours of gameplay. You go through hell. You go through like hordes of infected, dozens and dozens of Seraphites. You gotta fight.
Get ready to celebrate.
This fucking thing.
You gotta fight that fucking thing.
Thing of nightmares.
Literally nightmare fuel. I mean, when I first played the game, I didn't know that was coming. And I may or may not have shat my pants when I first played the game. I may or may not have.
It's one of those moments where it's like, okay, I'm gonna pause the game. Let me take a break for a moment. I don't need to keep playing right now.
It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like that fucking that Tim Robinson sketch. It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck is
that? Basically, it is everything like
horrifying. It's like the hardest boss fight in the game. It's like this nightmare amalgamation of all of the different infected types merged into one thing, which apparently can happen in real life with rats.
Jesus.
Which is just, the stuff of nightmares.
Nasty.
When it's like, Jesus H effing Christ, how it's horrifying. It is bad. But you spend all of that time, all of that effort to, save Yara, and she's okay by the end of it. And, you think that, okay, now it's going to be, the three amigos, Abby, Yara, and Lev. Only until you get to the very next mission after spending all of that time saving Yara. Oh, she's shit. Gone. I forgot to read here. God damn it. Sorry, I'm running things solo here, so it's kind of hard to juggle things. So spend all that time only for this to happen in the next mission.
Yeah. Oh.
To move. Come on. I can't leave her here. Stay back. Drop it now. It's Abby. Stay back. Stand down.
What the hell are you doing? Yeah, and that is the one big critique I have with Abby's side of the story.
Yeah,
Is that
and
you
that's like,
spend-
it's like one of like video games' biggest sins, where it's like you do all this to help one person, and the next mission like probably doesn't matter as much.
yeah, it feels, and I get what they're trying to do in this at this point in the story. This is like, because the character of Abby, she grew up with the Fireflies, grew up surrounded not by soldiers who were like bombing the different quarantine zones. She grew up around doctors who were trying to find the cure, and even little things in that Abby has. You see that, yes, deep down to her core, she cares about people. She wants to do the right thing. It's mostly this quest for vengeance against Joel that drove her to the WLF, who drove her into becoming this ruthless killer. And she's starting to like find that light again with this bond she has with Yara and Lev. And I get it on one level. It's about, the story is about the strength of found family and being able to choose that. However, that is one beat in the story I'm not crazy about.
Yeah. Maybe if they had a little bit more room to let Yara and Lev and Abby breathe a little bit more before killing her off, or I don't know, something different. But I totally get your complaints with that.
Yeah. On top of that, you have some fantastic side characters. Like I love most of the side characters that we meet in this game. Like you have Dina, who is Abby's love interest. Owen, who's probably like the best of Abby, best character in Abby's friend group. And you have a lot of great actors who are going to come into season 2 of the show to play them. You have of course, we mentioned Caitlin Dever, who's playing excuse my neck. I had to crack that. You have Caitlin Dever playing Abby. You have Isabella Merced, who's going to play Dina. You have our boy from Beef, Young Mazzino, playing Jesse. Who,
I'm really excited about that one.
I'm excited to see his take on the character.
Me too.
You have Tati Gabrielle, who's playing Nora, and Danny Ramirez, who's playing Manny in the show.
Yeah.
And you have two characters who I think are mentioned in the video game, but I don't think are ever seen. You have the character Eugene, who's going to be played by Joe Pantoliano.
Oh,
he's a character
who's
he's a character that's only seen in the video game and during that whole patrol mission with Dina. And you have Catherine O'Hara, who's going to play Eugene's wife.
Okay, nice, awesome.
And it's more into
I love that opening.
Yeah, it's more into how the differences between adaptations of what you can do in one medium versus another.
Exactly. Oh, okay, I'm very excited to see. I mean, love Catherine O'Hara already, but very excited to see both those characters in the show now.
But we've talked plenty about the story of The Last of Us Part 2. What's the gameplay like?
Ooh, it's so juicy.
Oh yeah, it's like no, relentless murder has never been so fun, especially with because in part 1 of The Last of Us, you're playing as Joel, who is a 56-year-old man who is has seen better days, but is still very brutal, ruthless, and his gameplay reflects that. He's very physically imposing. He's violent with all of his movements, especially in combat. But with Ellie and to a lesser extent with Abby, speed kills, baby.
Oh man, so quick. Like, I'm so glad they added that. Like, it's so simple, but the dodge mechanic and being able to which makes sense for a character like Ellie and Abby, who at this point in the game, I think Ellie is supposed to be 19, so she's young and physically in her prime, and is a hardened survivor. She's a badass, and it's such a great upgrade from the gameplay of the first one. Not that the gameplay in the first is bad.
Yeah, which the gameplay in the first game is already fantastic.
Yeah,
there's almost no other way you could improve it, but Naughty Dog found a way. just by adding this level of speed and agility to the character.
Yeah, even like the verticality, there's so much more in the environment, like to get like one, like just like in these like set piece areas where you're gonna be shooting a lot of soldiers or infected. There's a lot of places to get high, to go low, and like just the maps are bigger with just a lot more room to either evade or to go chaotic, like we're seeing here.
Yeah, and it's very much like you know, the animations, the brutality of it, because something that wasn't in the first game is you hear the AI actually like call out for the people that get killed. It's like, it's like, oh man, I just killed a person. It's like there's a mechanic where you kill dogs in this game, and you hear their cry out, which as a former dog owner, it kind of hurt my soul a little bit.
Oh man, yeah.
Which I think was the intention, but you know, it was
bad about that.
I feel very sorry about it. Do it again, though.
I'm gonna do it again if I gotta get through this game.
But all of that kind of especially with we talk a lot about I think we've talked a lot about Naughty Dog and how they are kind of very, you know, they are horrors for, you know, recycling a lot of their properties because, you know, they've remastered The Last of Us Part 1 3 different times for 3 different consoles. They put the, you know, Ultimate Edition. They shamelessly put it on the PS5 and the PS4. But you know, they added, whenever they do it, at least with the Part 2, they added like new mechanics to it. Like probably the biggest addition is the addition of No Return, which is kind of like this you know, survival the survivor run type of gameplay where it's you and you can play different characters in this. You can play as Ellie, Abby, but you can also play as Manny, Jesse, Joel, and Tommy. Dina, you can play as her, and it randomly generates enemies and it adds different mods to the game to add a new level of challenge. And if you get through all the different levels, you get to fight one of the bosses. Have you played any of No Return?
I have not, but I'm excited to get into it because I love games like this, like road kind of run games, and like basically every time is different. Like if you haven't played Hades, that's like probably one of my favorite ones. But yeah, I want to really try this out. I haven't tried it out yet.
Oh yeah, I've played a little bit of it. You know, in between games because I kind of forget which ones I have on my PS5. But I played a little bit of it. It is so much fun and such a big challenge because you know, whenever I replay these games for the show, or you know, whenever I'm in the mood after, you know, because I replayed the first game after watching The Last of Us Season 1, you know, I turn on the gameplay mods. I'm a cheater.
Yeah, no, I need to do this thing because
I kind of treat those games like I'm John Wick in the Apocalypse.
There you
go. I take the power fantasy to a max, but you know, it adds a level of challenge to it.
Okay, I gotta really try that out then.
Yeah, No Return is a lot of fun, and if you haven't played a version of The Last of Us Part 2, I recommend getting it on the PS5. Right. And top of that, the visuals look better than they've ever been, and Part 2 was already basically the peak of what the PS3 could do.
Yeah, right. And like it somehow looks better. Like I was so surprised. Like this game, and like when God of War came out on PS4, I was like, "This is on the PS4." I was like, "Jesus."
and so we talked about the game. What would be your final thoughts on that? And if you had to give it a rating on our scale, what would you give The Last of Us Part 2 as a video game?
That's a great question. I mean, I love this game. I'm having a great time replaying it right now. Like I haven't played it since the first initial playthrough. But yeah, I would probably have to go and give this like a very strong, I almost want to say peak because I don't want to make people mad.
Oh wow.
But what's below peak?
Below peak is tune in.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably give it a really strong tune in. Like if you played the first game, if you stuck with Naughty Dog like through the Uncharted series, like I think you can definitely see their growth as like developers in general. Like we gushed about the gameplay and just how gorgeous this game looks. But yeah, just story-wise as well. Like I think this is probably their most mature story to date. and I love the risk they take. I love the subversion they do with it. The character work, of course, Ashley Johnson and really gets to shine as Ellie, and of course Laura Bailey as well as Abby is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think at the Video Game Show Award, she won for best performance, which
hell yeah,
I'm fully on board with. I'm a huge fan of Laura Bailey and all of her voice work.
Yes.
Watch
She's one of
Vox
the best
Machina.
working.
There
you go.
Watch Vox Machina if you haven't tuned in.
Great show. So many video game actors on that show as well. But yeah, Laura Bailey's one of the best. Ashley Johnson's fantastic. But yeah, I love this game. I love Naughty Dog. Even with all like the minor complaints and like little issues, like this still adds up to a great gaming experience. Even if you don't like the story, you gotta respect the gameplay on some level as well, because it's so good. But yeah, I love this game, and I'm really excited to see how the second season like adapts it and what they subvert this time.
And yeah, to my final thoughts, I'm kind of right there with you. I'm like very hesitant to give this game a peek because I do have those same complaints about the story that I mentioned. It's like,
yeah.
But that being said, I think that this game story, the directions it takes, I think it's a very bold and a very fascinating thing to discuss, especially in light of trying to find out where these characters are in this mindset of the apocalypse. Because we're, criticizing a lot of their decisions, from the comfort of our chairs in our video games. We're not fighting for survival. But I think it's a very bold decision, and I can't help but admire it on that level. I think it is, fantastic. And that mechanic would have completely fallen apart if I didn't like the character of Abby the longer I played the game.
Yeah.
If I didn't like her and her interactions with Yara and Lev, and seeing her character growth and arc from starting to see the light of that violent path that she was on, that was very much mirroring Joel from the first game. If that element of the story didn't work, this game would have fallen apart, but thankfully it doesn't. And even 4 years after the original game came out, I'm still replaying and loving it. I'm still finding new ways to challenge myself, new ways to approach a lot of the different scenarios. How do I deal with the infected? Do I try to do a stealth run of one of these games one day?
Right. Yeah.
And even talking about No Return and how much fun that gameplay mode is, I got to give this a very strong tune in. I'm a shill. I've paid for most of the versions of this game. And
me too.
I still love it.
Honestly, I can't, if you haven't played this game by now, I think it's the perfect time to do it, especially before or even alongside, or even after season 2, just to see how the comparisons, I think it's a great time to jump in. It's probably on sale on PS5 right now. I don't know how much, because I just did the $10 upgrade because I already had it. But it shouldn't be too expensive.
Yeah, but in light of what we've talked about, what are some of your expectations, hopes for season 2 of the show? Because it looks like they're taking elements from the second game, but they're also adding in so much more stuff in Jackson.
Right. Yeah, I'm very curious. I think the most probably I'm curious about it with season 2 is the timeline of the game. I mean, of the season, because with the game, like you said, we get that 4-year time jump from the first game to the second one. Ellie's 19 years old. Obviously, Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal have not grown that old in what 2-3 years since season 1. So I'm curious, how long, just the timing of everything will be. I'm curious how much more of the WLF we'll get in the game. I mean, in the show. Since season 1 was very open with showing more about other groups and what's going on with them.
But even with the other groups, especially in season 1, I think with the Kansas City group, the Reapers as we know them in the game, they were shown to have more layers to them, but they were still villainous by the end of the day.
Yeah,
at the end
exactly.
of the day. And even David, you got to see more of his group, but the guy was a PDF file.
Yeah, big time. He was not some guy I want to get to know more. But Yeah, and I think like we haven't talked about huge spoilers yet, but like you know, like where we talked about like where we switched to Abby in the first in part 2. I'm curious because they haven't been shy about like telling this story like in multiple seasons. Like they said part 2 is not gonna just be this season.
I think done right, you could easily split up the second game into 2 seasons.
Yeah. Don't know where they would cut it off. Maybe at that part with Abby, maybe even earlier. I'm super curious whenever like how they're gonna handle the Joel of it all. Like because motherfucker can't die in the first episode. But that'd be ballsy. That'd be ballsy if they did it.
Especially with what I'm reading on Wikipedia about the show, because especially with the character Eugene that Joe Pantoliano is going to be playing, and also his wife Gail, who's you see in one of the first trailers, but she's Joel's therapist, and I'm curious to see how they incorporate that into the story.
Yeah, because in the game he tells Tommy about the truth, so like it's interesting him telling or seemingly telling somebody else about like what he did. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited. I know this probably subverts some expectations like the first season did. Very curious where we didn't even talk about Jeffrey Wright. He's reprising his role as Isaac from the game. I'm curious if we get more of him.
If you have Jeffrey Wright already, go ahead and keep Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
He's like one of our
keep Jeffrey Wright.
All right, we got some people in the comments. Mr. Joel Miller. To me, it really isn't really misunderstood, just a missed sequel, meaning it's not a good game because of its story, but the gameplay is all right. All right, thanks for the comment. I like the story enough. M for Immaturity, welcome back. Jumping back and forth each chapter, I think would have done wonders for the pacing, more like how Alan Wake 2 divided the time between its characters.
That'd be interesting.
That's a point I kind of, on some level, I agree with, but I feel like with the way that both sides of both Ellie and Abby's character arcs go, I feel like that would have maybe taken away from Abby's character arc, because you're still thoroughly entrenched in Ellie's side of the story, and she needs to be this kind of monster in order for her side to work. Like if you start feeling sympathy,
jumping back and forth,
if you start to jump back and forth, you start to see more and more that Ellie is kind of unreasonable and should probably just let this go.
Right there with you.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, M for Immaturity. Same strong tune in. It may have flaws, but does a lot of amazing things as well.
Totally agree.
Okay. Sage brings up something. Do you know about the multiplayer game being canceled after having been developed for like 4 years? Yeah, I heard a little bit about that. I'm upset about that too. I remember in the first game there was this multiplayer mode where you got to see all of that brutality against other players, which especially with The Last of Us 2's game mechanics and the differences in that, how much fun that could have been. But I guess Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog have gone full Hollywood now.
Right. But
I got that HBO money.
I feel like that the first game's multiplayer was a little underrated because I had like a lot of fun playing that back in the day. But yeah, I was excited for what the possibility of the second one could have been. But it's all right. At least we got a new game mode at least for this.
A new game mode that I still think is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a short stream. I'm kind of upset I didn't prepare more.
No, you're good. Like, I mean, one more thing I was going to say was with the game and the story, like seeing like the adaptation. I'm curious where, like like in the game we get like flashbacks, so like with Joel and Ellie. Like, I'm curious, like how like the pacing of the show will do that. Like if we'll get that in between, like we'll get like a special episode, like we got that Bill episode of just that when Joel and Ellie had those moments together, or if we'll just, or even like how like we'll get like the back and forth with like Abby. Like I'm curious how they'll balance Abby and Ellie's story within the season. If we'll see like Ellie a majority of the time, and then we'll see Abby in the back half, or if we'll bounce back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the round of directors that they have on board for season 2 because, of course, the premiere is going to be directed by Craig Mazin, who's directed the pilot. Episode 2 is directed by Mark Mylod, who's directed Game of Thrones, and of course, one of my favorites from a couple years ago, The Menu.
Hell yeah, that's awesome! I had no idea about that one.
Also won the directing for the outstanding directing Emmy for Succession. I think for season 3's was Connor's Wedding.
Oh yeah. Was that? That's the one where, I mean, spoilers for Succession, I guess, but that's the one where he dies, right?
Yep. Yeah, where he died. You also have Peter Hoare, who's worked on Daredevil and Doctor Who. You have Kate Herron, who's directed episodes of Loki. Stephen Williams, who's worked on Lost as well, and of course Neil Druckmann, who directed the second episode of the series.
Man, okay.
And also Nina Lopez Corrado, who does not have a Wikipedia page, but let me see. She's directed episodes of Perry Mason, Supernatural, SWAT, Once Upon a Time.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, she's been around.
Solid mix of known TV directors and some all-time TV directors.
Hell yeah, I'm into it. I cannot wait.
Yeah, and Last of Us season 2 premieres on April 13th, so a little over a week for us now.
Woo!
Let's go, baby.
Let's go.
Get ready to fucking cry.
Play the game. I'm already crying, so it's gonna be crying on top of more crying.
But Brandon, tell the people where they can find you at, man, before we get out of here.
Yeah, you can find me on the Letterboxd. That's probably my most used app at Brando Not Marlin. If you're still on the Hell site of Twitter, I'm childish_Brando, and yeah, that's about it.
All right, you can find me, your host Nick, on all the social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Letterboxd at Night and Day Nick. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, The Afternoon Tune. You can find us on YouTube, youtube.com/The Afternoon Tune. You can find us on TikTok, The Afternoon Tune. You can find us on live streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/The Afternoon Tune. Got any questions, stuff you want us to cover, send us an email at afternoontune@gmail.com. Follow me. Thank you. You've been a great audience. You have a good night.